Hello, you guys. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm so excited for this episode because we are approaching our 1 year anniversary. We're almost at 1 year officially. I think it's on the 14th of September. It is officially 1 year since I launched my first episode, since I put my podcast out there. And I thought I had another episode actually recorded and ready to go for today, but it didn't feel aligned. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to record this day of on Tuesday. So it's Tuesday, September 10th. I'm going to upload this immediately after this. And I felt like just doing an episode on like my top 12-ish lessons that I feel like I've learned this year and overcome and grown through as like a cutie little recap to the last year and the last year of officially launching the podcast and everything that I've learned, because I feel like I've taken you guys along this journey with me. Like if I'm healing, if I'm growing, if I'm dating, if I'm learning something about myself, if I'm having a massive, grief release, like whatever I have gone through. My hair looks a little nuts, so I washed it last night, which I never do. When you wash it before bed, but you don't normally do that. Anyways, yeah, I just thought it would be really cool to kind of do a chat, a reflection. I wanted to say thank you so much to all of you who have listened and been here and been a part of this podcast. If you have shared an episode, if you have sent the link to somebody, if you have told somebody to listen to this, if you have posted it on your stories, if you have messaged me about your key takeaways, if you've shared this with a spouse and it's transformed your relationship, like, thank you. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart, I hope you can feel that. Thank you, because it's starting to reach so many more people than it's picking up traction, I guess. And I'm having new people who didn't know me before who are finding the podcast and they're like, oh my gosh, thank you. This is helping me through whatever season they're going through. And it's because of you guys sharing that it's helping other people. And truly, that was my goal when I started this, was I just want to share from the heart. I don't want to act necessarily like I'm some expert and like I know everything and here's the like scientific reason why this is the way. It's like, no, I'm just going to share human to human, real life, what I'm moving through, the things that I'm figuring out as I navigate it, in hopes that it can also benefit and help you on whatever you're going through and the journey that you're going through. So I've seen all my angel numbers of unconditional love and trusting the flow already since recording this. And I just felt like I needed to just speak from the heart. I did write down some notes, so I'm going to get into that. 12 things that I feel like I have learned since starting this podcast and just things that I've overcome, learned over the last year. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, so the first thing that I want to say, just kind of as a recap and a celebration, I'm going to be reading a little bit, which you guys know I talk better off the cuff, but I feel like this is important. So the first one that I wrote down was that whole saying about your greatest fear truly being your greatest gift is so true. And if you guys don't know the story, my greatest fear was public speaking. There was nothing that scared me more than the idea of public speaking. And how funny that my voice happens to be the thing that allows me to connect with people, to inspire people, to motivate them, to help have different things land, like to help them believe in themselves, like whatever that thing is that I'm using my voice for. If it's to give you truth bombs that help wake you up and shake you up, no matter what, I'm like, that's my voice. And for so long, I was so afraid to use it and put it out there because of that fear of public speaking. And I was like grade 3 when I stood in front of a big audience because I got chosen to share some poem in front of the class or the school. And I completely froze up, bright red. And I was terrified of public speaking from that day. And if you guys know anything about soul paths and your journey and whatever, it's like typically things will happen in your life on purpose to have you need to overcome it. And a lot of the time, that like really hard thing or that thing that you're super afraid of, there's usually a correlation in it being one of your top, if not your unique gift. And so to uncover that and trust that, like, if you haven't uncovered it yet, go to what you fear. Like, what are you really afraid of? What makes you feel so open and vulnerable? That could be your gift. And when you expose that and share it with the world, that could be the thing that connects you so deeply and is like the thing that this world needs from you. So I really, truly have learned that, like that greatest fear, that it can be your greatest gift. It's so true for me. The thing I was most afraid of was using my voice. And here I am a year into using my voice more than I ever have, the most openly I think I've ever spoken about anything in terms of a public platform. And it's been amazing. So thanks for being here with me and like watching me uncover and move through like that great big fear that I had and kind of move through it together. So the next thing that I wanted to talk about is I did plant medicine for my first time in October of last year, so almost a year ago. And through that, I learned so much. Like I've done a couple journeys and ceremonies since then, but it truly did deeply connect me to source like I had never been before. Like I always knew there was a God or a higher power, but now I feel like I know. Like there's a difference of logically knowing, like, oh yeah, I read the scripture and I've read a text, and like there's a God. Yep, there's a God. Versus like knowing it and feeling it within your body of what that feels like, that connection feels like, being able to see it and feel it in terms of like the trees and nature and other people and that feeling of God, source, universe, energy. It's like, it's so beautiful. And so I feel like I truly know that now. And my faith is just so deep that before I used to feel this pressure of like, I got to make the right decision. I got to make sure I'm doing it right. And I got and my brain was always going a million miles a minute trying to make the right decision or make the right choice. And I felt like I had all this pressure on me, which was self-imposed. And even through breath work, it wasn't even just through plant medicine. Those journeys showed me there has been angels and spirit guides and a team of people supporting me this entire time. It was me who was so in my head, blocking everything else out that I couldn't even see them, feel them, or tune into them because I was so in my egoic monkey mind, you know, where you're here and you're thinking that you need to make all the right decisions. And it truly just showed me like with full faith, I'm being guided and supported this whole time. And I don't need to put that same level of stress on me anymore. And just to trust those intuitive hits that when it feels like a very resonant yes within my body, like I can feel that this feels good, to trust it. I don't need to question it. I don't need to know the logic behind it, to just trust wherever that yes is pulling me. Does that make sense? And trusting that this is something else. I think I have it in here. And so, but like really trusting that there's nothing bad, like even the quote unquote bad stuff that happens on your journey, like the things that are hard, the things that suck, the things that knock you to your knees, the things that make you cry, the things that break your heart, the grief that you feel, like no matter what happens in your life, the hard stuff is there to help shape you. And I know that now. So even if I make a quote unquote wrong choice or a bad choice, I don't believe in right or wrong. I don't believe in good or bad. I believe in like situations that arise for the greater good of your soul's path and journey that you need to evolve through. And when you get to that level of faith, do you know how easy life gets? Like you trust that if you're getting rejected from something, you're being protected, truly. Not trying to manipulate or control a situation or an outcome. Like, you know, okay, if I'm coming up to a ton of resistance here, there's something that I don't see and I just need to trust that. And I feel like I truly understand that and have such a deep level of faith now. I also, number 3, I realized that the man I was seeking outside of me was actually healing the masculine within me and shifting from that wounded masculine space to a more healthy divine within myself. And I've talked about this before, but this was massive for me. Like when I left my marriage and relationship, I felt like I needed this man outside of me to like make me feel safe and secure and protected and provided for and all of these things. And it's like, yes, I was kind of doing that for myself, but not from a healthy place. And I think in the last year, for sure, I've learned what it feels like to make myself feel safe. What does that feel like in my body? Do you even know? Are you too high strung to ever even know what it feels like to feel safe in your body? Do you know what it feels like to feel protected and trust yourself? That you are so in tune and you can trust yourself so much that you're always going to be protected and provided for because you can trust what's happening internally to do that for you. I truly feel that now, where it's like, had I not found that within myself, I would still be seeking that outside myself in some man or something, right? And it's like, no, the journey is finding that feeling within you before you can ever welcome that in and mirror that from another, right? Does this make sense? And really understanding that like I needed to provide myself the boundaries and protection. And that means in certain situations where I would have like put my needs aside in order to make sure that I could gain connection with another. I don't do that anymore. I'm so secure in choosing like, okay, wow, I can feel that this doesn't feel good for me. And so I'm not willing to put my needs last or like not, and not out of a guarding, but like shield and protect your own self and your own heart. Like if you're not willing to do that for you, you're not going to attract a partner that's going to do that too. Does that make sense? So it's like really understanding that you have to be that safety, that provider, that security for yourself, and trust yourself enough to know that like you're safe, you're good within you and for you. Okay, so the next one. Number 4, your voice is always going to land for the right people, and you can make a bigger impact than you realized. So this podcast hasn't grown. Like when I wrote, let's say like last year, and I was like, how many people I want to reach? I also can't really tell. I haven't looked at proper metrics, right? But I can see how many people are subscribed to Spotify. I don't actually know how many people are subscribed on Apple. But when I wrote down numbers, like I imagined, I'm like, oh, a year you could have like 100,000 subscribers. I don't, not even close. And I think for me, the value in that was realizing like you don't necessarily have to reach hundreds of thousands of people to really impact a human life. Some of the things that you guys have shared with me from these episodes and from these podcasts, like that is life altering impact. And to me, it's like understanding that you can make such a big impact. I think sometimes we think with social media, especially, we think of needing all the followers or needing the super big business or needing these super big numbers, whether it be clients, followers, podcast subscribers, like subscribers on YouTube, it doesn't really matter. But we think we need these big, massive numbers. And if anything, it has shown me that my voice is always going to land for the right people and that you truly can make a bigger impact than you realize, even if it's just to one life, one person, one listener, one client. Like it doesn't have to be a massive amount, like quality over quantity, right? Like I truly feel that with a lot of the relationships that I've even cultivated with some of you through you being listeners of this podcast. And so I'm really grateful for that. And understanding that like, it doesn't mean necessarily that this isn't successful, because I could have looked at that and been like, oh my gosh, I haven't grown as fast as I want. I haven't reached as many people as I want. I haven't hit the quote unquote goal that I set. But to be honest, I wasn't committed to that. I'd never done this before. So I didn't actually have a commitment of, I want to reach 100,000 people and I'm going to do it. I didn't do this podcast like that. I truly just record whatever feels on my heart. I throw it out there. I put it out there. I haven't done paid ads. I haven't like tried to advertise this podcast outside of sharing on my stories, honestly, or like posting a reel here and there about the fact that I even have a podcast. So I'm just really grateful knowing that it's impacting lives, even if it's not as many as I imagined it would be within a year. But we're just getting started, right? Okay, number 5. I went on my first date since starting this podcast. And I feel like that's huge because I'd never done this before, like gone on a date and then gone on another date and like one date and then never saw them again, right? Like I'd never done that. Anyone I had gone on a quote unquote date with, I was already seeing or dating, or we were in a relationship after that. Like I've never dated and not ended up in a long-term relationship with that person. Does that make sense? So I've never done the like, we go on a date with this person, then maybe you don't really talk that much, or you go on a date with this person, or you end up going on a date and never talking again. Like I've never done that. It was always, if I was going on a date with you, we were already kind of starting to like each other and like we're probably going to be in a relationship. And then I'd end up in a 2 to 5 year relationship with that person. So I had never done this before, and you guys have been a part of that entire journey. And I just wrote that it's been really interesting. And it's only been with a couple people. So I haven't like chronically dated or dated a ton or whatever, right? So I don't have a ton of experience, but I do have some. And I realized in that new dating that whenever I would find someone I liked, I'd pedestal them. And I think my biggest journey was realizing like I needed to stop getting so emotionally involved with people I didn't know. So I would pedestal someone and make them, and I think as women, a lot of us do this. Men, not so much. Like I've heard this before where men kind of start you at 0 and women, we start you at 100. So women will start a man at 100 and we're like, oh my God, this is him. He's my husband. And like, I love this and I love this and I love this. And we don't even really know them yet. And guys just start us as kind of like, yeah, cool. She's hot, whatever. Like they don't emotionally invest like that, but we do. And so I had to realize for me that, my journey was to realize I needed to stop doing that and actually get to know these people and their character before getting emotionally attached. And I feel like I've truly learned this now. And would choose myself over trying to make a partner choose me. So this is something I realized that I used to do in every relationship. And I feel like it truly was my biggest lesson in this last year of dating and being open and being single, was choosing me over putting my needs aside for the potential of developing a relationship with a man. So what I used to do was I could feel maybe there was some separation or distance, and I would position myself to make sure that they chose me or they liked me. And I've noticed that I haven't done that this time with any of them. Like I could have tried to push it or like, ooh, like what can I do to make them like me? And I haven't done that. But I used to do that. It was like, I need to make sure I win this person because we've gone on a date. And if it doesn't work, that means they didn't like me and there's something wrong with me. Where I'm like, no, the relationship just really couldn't be right for you. But that's what I used to do. And so through the people that I've dated, realizing like, we don't need to be in a relationship, right? There could be some people that are super cool, could seem compatible, but it's like not someone you're actually meant to spend and be in a relationship with, and trusting that. And then when you see those red flags, and I don't even necessarily call them red flags, but for me, there's kind of like deal breakers, right? Like an example would be communication. Like if you're sending mixed signals and you're spotty in your communication, like it's a no for me, because I'm like, that's something I value so much. If we can't be open, transparent, and honest, even in the dating stages, what are we doing? Like, how are we supposed to cultivate and build a relationship? Like, we should be able to have open communication and connection. And so just little things where like I would have overlooked that out of trying to quote unquote win the relationship, which I don't do anymore. So that's been a massive lesson over the last year that I actually feel settled into. I'm not just saying that. I'm like, I get it now differently, like an embodied getting. Does that make sense? The next one that I wrote for number 6 was to not act when things feel rushed or overwhelming and don't give me a sense of peace. So I wanted to use this as a house example. So last February, if you guys remember, last February-ish, if you guys remember, I almost bought a house. Like if you've been listening since then, there was a house that I really loved and I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? It's so beautiful. And like, I want it and it's so great and it's like perfect and it's so pretty and oh my God, and I want it. And I felt panicked. I felt like I needed to make this choice really fast and I was feeling unsettled about it and like, oh my God, and what do I do? And is this the right choice? And I don't know. And the price of it didn't necessarily feel good to me. Like I would have had to still do renovations. I needed to build a home for my parents. Like it just didn't work. There was things about the land. And again, you can apply this to any of your area of your life. It doesn't have to be a house. It could be a partnership. It could be a job. It could be anything. There were things that I was settling on that weren't aligned with my morals and my values, like clear cutting the land and like selling off half for profit. I know people do this all the time, but for me to live on that land, that didn't feel good to me. I wanted land that felt like, I don't know, had been there for a long time. And I can't explain it. I just didn't want to move into somewhere where they had just clear cut a bunch of it for profit. I wanted more acreage anyways. And that was something I couldn't change. So even though there was a beautiful home, I couldn't, make the land what I wanted it to be. So I felt really panicked about that decision, right? Like I was like whipping out my cards and whipping out my little, what are those called? The pendulums, whatever, doing all these things. So I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? And in that versus the house that I just bought now, which is like, 6 months later, my nose is so itchy. If you guys are watching on camera, oh my God. But that's always funny. Like I get itchy ears sometimes too. You guys probably notice I itch my ears. I was just wondering what that was the other day. I'm like, are the AirPods burning them? Someone said it could be candida. I'm like, I don't really know, but it's random. Like I get like random itches in my ears. If you guys know what that's about, let me know. Anyways. Okay. So yeah, where was I? So that feeling of unsettledness, trusting that it's probably not right for you. Okay. But I'm going to give a little disclaimer here because there's some of you who are so effing anxious and unregulated within your body that you feel like that about everything. That doesn't mean everything's wrong for you. Okay. So it's like you need to come to a place where you understand what a good, clear yes feels like, not from an anxious place. Does this make sense? So it's like if you're someone who's constantly anxious, then this is not for you. But if you're pretty grounded in your body, you know what that feels like. You know what a very easy yes feels like. You know what a right yes feels like. You'll know the difference. And so with that house, what I've learned versus the house that I just bought and I actually went through with was I didn't feel rushed. I didn't feel pressure. I didn't feel anything. Like I literally just felt like, yeah, this feels good. Okay, if something else is supposed to pop up, it will. But like I walked through and I was like, yeah, this feels like peace. Yep, this one feels good. I could do this. I didn't feel pressure. I didn't feel rushed. I didn't feel anything. It was just like, yeah, this feels good. And if it's meant to be, it'll all work out. And like if it's meant to be my house, it will be. And I didn't feel this urgency to act. It was just like, this is going to be mine. And I think apply that to a relationship, right? Like think of so many people who have been married for a long time. So many of the men have said, and I've heard this recently, they saw the girl and they were like, that's it. Like, that's her. That's my wife. I don't know. I'm just going to marry her. It wasn't urgent and panicky. They just had a knowing. Right. And so with this, I wouldn't say I knew immediately, but like it felt the best out of any of the other ones. And I was like, if this is meant to be my house, like it's all just going to flow. And if it isn't, something else is going to pop up. And nothing else popped up. And it was just kind of like that one felt good. Like once I saw it, I stopped looking. So you could apply this to relationship too, where it's like once I saw that one, I was like, no, this is it. This is it. Like I know. And I didn't feel the need to look. I didn't feel the need to like, oh my God, but what if there's this one? And like, what if there's a better one? And like, I didn't feel any uppityness. It was just a sureness. So that's one of my biggest lessons and takeaways from the year is if it's right, I won't be running circles in my mind, overthinking, trying to find how it's going to work. I will just know it's going to. Does this make sense? I hope it does. Because I'm applying that same thing to other areas of my life now where it's like, if it doesn't feel like that, like think of a relationship when you're in that talking stage and you're like, I don't know, but then like this and like this and like this. And you're like overthinking so much. Again, if you're not a chronically anxious person, but you notice that it brings that out of you, it's probably just not right. Because something that's right for you is not going to create that much dysregulation. I truly believe you're going to feel way more peace and you're not going to feel this like urgent, weird pressure or feeling like you need to try to read someone or understand something. Like there's not going to be that. It's just going to feel good and right. Okay. Yeah. And then the other thing was like not feeling like I was going to lose it if I didn't act. So think about it, because if you're feeling, oh my God, I need to go quick because like, if I don't, then I'm going to lose it. Like that's coming from a place of scarcity, fear, and lack. I never want to operate that way in my life. So when I saw this house, it was like, if it's meant to be, it will be for me. And I know abundantly, like if it's not and it doesn't work, there's so many other houses, it's going to be something better. So I just kept going like, it's this or something better. And it just ended up being that. And I actually just had the meeting right now for the floor designs for the renovations. And it feels amazing. And it's so wild because it's pretty much like that other house that I really wanted that I fell in love with on Richards. And I love the design. He didn't even see that house. And like, it's almost a recreation in a lot of ways of that, but better with the land and with the property and like how it's going to be laid out and the designs for the school and my parents' house and like the farm and all of these things. It fits everything that I wanted even better. Okay. The next one, number 7, slow down and trust yourself. If you silence out the noise around you, you'll get the answers and clarity you're looking for, i.e., like quiet out social media, the notifications, the TV, unplug for a day and be with yourself and realize what comes through for you. I really feel this lately. Like so many people are saying they're struggling with ADHD. And I'm like, first of all, can we stop diagnosing ourselves with a disorder? I understand you could be struggling with the symptoms, but when you label yourself as, I am ADHD, I have ADHD, I have blank, I have whatever, I am depressed, I am anxious, I am, you're right. And you're creating that thing. So rather than reiterating this thing that you're saying is a hindrance to your life, why are we identifying as that thing? If it's hindering your life, it's making your life harder. Why are we identifying with that thing that is making your life harder? And I would just say, like, if you're saying that you struggle with ADHD, I'm just like, do you really? Or do you just have a distraction device in your hand 24/7? Because I think anyone who jumps between apps, jumps between notifications, is on their phone and then is trying to do something and then they have their computer and then another notification is coming in, like, no shit, you have attention deficit disorder. Our attention is being pulled in 9 million directions. So I would challenge you, if you've claimed this over yourself and like are now identifying as having something that is a limitation, go get rid of your phone. turn off all notifications for a day. Do you still have ADHD? And obviously this is a thing that you're going to have to really practice to get your brain out of that thing. Cause like, this is what I want you to understand. Anyone who has ADHD, our apps have been created, this length of time of a reel, the length of time of a video, how the posts are, how the music is, how the text hit, how quickly you can swipe, has all been created on purpose to make you have a goldfish brain. Because the less attention you can have to something, the quicker your attention goes through, and it's like dopamine hits, the longer you're addicted to being on the apps. That's like what they would like on the apps, right? So this is where you need to learn your boundaries with this. If you notice, and I'm guilty of this too, I could easily self-proclaim ADHD over myself, of course. But you know what I do? I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I get my phone away from me when I'm like, fuck, what am I trying to do? This happened to me this morning. I was on Instagram and I was tapping through stories and I was like, what are you doing right now? Like, why are you doing this? There's other things you could be doing. And I had to go, fuck, like, what did I want to do? And so I went into my calendar because this is the only way I can function. And it had said like the things that I wanted to do today. And then I was like, oh, right, I wanted to record this podcast and talk about 12 things. Sit outside, put your phone on D&D and write out the 12. And so I did. Okay. So it's like, yes, I struggle with this too, where my brain is going in 9 million directions all day long. But it's like, come back to the focus point. If you don't have something that you know helps bring you back to that focus point, you need to start learning what that is for you. And then I would challenge you, go on a detox, social media, phones, anything. Like if you're finding you're feeling very, very scattered, you're probably spending too much time consuming versus creating. And it doesn't have to just be creating content. It could be creating things for your work. Could be creating things within your home. It could be just that creation energy, like baking bread, doing things like making mud pies outside with your kids. I don't care what it is. It could be creating a reel. But if you're spending a lot of time consuming other information, it could be podcast overload, audiobooks, like reels and people's content and my podcast, like it could be anything. But if you're overloading your brain with information, but you're not giving yourself any time to kind of sit in that, integrate, let your own thoughts run free, you're going to feel very scattered. So just check yourself with that. Like if you're starting, because I'm just noticing a lot more reels pop up talking about ADHD. And I'm like, okay, this is going to become the next thing that everyone just says that they have. Because of course you can see yourself in that. We all are going to have, we're living in a time where there's a lot of distractions. So of course you're going to feel that way, but like be just mindful what you proclaim over yourself as a disorder that you're dealing with, because it can put you in a state of limitation and a limiting belief about yourself that doesn't have to be true. You just need to find ways to take yourself out of the things that typically take all your energy, attention, and distract you. Does this make sense? And like, if you can learn to quiet your mind, you won't really deal with that anymore. There's going to be seasons where you feel very consumed in information. Yes, you're going to feel like your attention's all over the place, but that's where, like, I would say, like, learn to meditate. But that was the most annoying thing people used to say to me. It's like, oh, how do you find stillness? And like, stop overthinking. Oh, just meditate. Oh, yeah. I'm just going to sit there alone and try to be in my own brain while it's going a million miles a minute. That didn't work for me. But deep breathing through yoga, for example, where I was moving, or like going to a breathwork session where I had to focus on, like I had to use my mind to focus on those two breaths. So like that helped me understand what it felt like to be in a meditative state rather than trying to just meditate on the spot. Does that make sense? So like if you're like me and you can't just sit there and meditate, try the breathwork and yoga and things like that to get you in that state within your body, or just go to plant medicine. And like that'll help you from overthinking because it shuts it right off. Okay. Next thing, if you're single, trust that you may have some more lessons to learn and overcome, and trust your future partner may be on their journey of moving through their own lessons in order to become the person they need to be for your partnership to flourish and last long term. Don't rush it. Lean into finding peace within you so you don't feel a need for a partner, and prioritize relationships with yourself and sisterhood first. So really knowing that, I felt this like lately with my husband. That's how I talk about him. I'm like, we're not ready yet. And right now I'm feeling like, yeah, there might be a couple baby steps for me, but I actually think he's going through some deep, deep, deep transitions before we're ready to meet. And I just trust that. I don't feel this need to be seeking on dating apps. Like, who is he and where is he? And like, maybe he's at this event and maybe he's at this event. And like, maybe if I just search social media, I could find him. I don't feel any of that anymore. I truly feel like I've honed all my energy back into me. And I'm like, me being me is going to attract him to me. I don't need to search for him. I don't need to find him. Like, he's coming. I just trust it, whether it ends up being some event that I go to or a trip that I'm on. I don't know. It could be through social media. I really don't know. All I know is somehow, some way, we're going to be connected, and he's not ready yet. He's going through, this is so weird, you guys, but when I started writing letters to my future husband, it was like, I can feel him in a session I just had, like I'm going to talk about this in a second, a session I just had the other day. I felt the partner presence behind my back, like grabbing me so tightly. I still saw it in my last journey of him behind me. He's like, I've been here the whole time. Like, it's life. And he's so full of energy. Like magnetizing. I can feel the presence. And this is just a touch point on manifestation, especially as a woman when you come into your power. It's more about the feeling. So not so much like, I need him to have one mustache and 3 teeth and like all those, like those things. It's more the feeling, like really understand the feeling within your body, because that's going to be it's going to have such a deep resonance when you meet them and you're like, like, okay, I get it. This was the feeling in my body that I had. Anyways. And so what the hell was I just saying about that? I have this weird thing and belief that like he's navigating something right now internally. And if we were to meet, it wouldn't work. So it's like, I just don't have a rush. I'm like, live your life, enjoy it, enjoy this time with your kids. Like, it's just you guys. You guys just get to be with you. I think about my life right now and I'm like, I don't want to try fitting in like hour-long phone calls and connection time, like the beginning of dating. Like, I was doing that earlier this year and it took a lot of my energy and a lot of my time from me. And I'm like, I'm in a season of creation again. And I'm happy to have my energy there. And yeah, that feels really good for me. So like, I just know he's navigating some stuff and journeys and like growing still to become the person he needs to be. And I saw some meme the other day. It was like, your soulmate is still navigating a divorce. Like, be patient. And it's like, it's so true though. Like, they could be needing to move through some stuff in their own life to be ready for that partnership with you. So just trust that like when you come and like let go of all the needs and you get into a place of peace within you and you're just living your life in alignment for you, like they're going to come. And just a fun fact on this, because this is another resounding knowing within me that I've shifted. I'm selling my California house. Okay. It just felt right. If you know anything about human design, I'm a projector. So when I'm in alignment, I feel success. And when I'm not, I feel bitterness. And every time a bill came in for that house, I felt my whole body clench up and I felt bitter. And I was like, okay, I'm holding on to this thing that I like and I enjoy, but it was kind of from an ego place, not out of like a fully aligned place anymore. And I was like, I need to let this go. Not easy to let it go, but I was like, I have to let this go. So I listed it, we sold it. It's just going through the process right now. And it's going to be kind of sad because it's a chapter closing, right? And like, I really thought I was going to live in California. I really thought I was going to live in the States. It's just not time yet. And that's okay. But letting that go and understanding too, like how I was saying earlier, like there's no bad decisions. There's only like decisions that help you on your journey. I obviously needed to be by the ocean, be by the sun, be by the pool, do that experience every single time, you guys. I forced that house to happen. I forced all of it to happen when it was like, don't do this, don't do this. Like, think of it like universe, God being like, of course it's 33333. That was my whole journey with the California house was 333. The listing, like the address was 333. Like, anyway, so it's like, it was a whole journey. I learned a lot through that phase and that year in that house. And it's just time to let it go. And so being ready, like even when it's hard, being ready to let go of the things that no longer serve you and just trusting that. I don't know why I was talking about that other than, just trusting what's in front of you, trusting yourself to let things go that are no longer serving you. And I don't know what I was going with that. There was somewhere. Anyways, doesn't matter. Okay, let's jump into the next one. I think I remember sort of. Oh yeah, the bad lessons versus good lessons. Like I could see that as a bad lesson. Like I didn't lose money. Like I'm pretty much getting it all back. But like there's things that I spent money on that were dumb. But it was like I was pushing through, like how I mentioned earlier with the other house, it was feeling like this resistance feeling. I was feeling constricted and like it was pressure. That's kind of how I felt with the California house stuff. And I did it anyway. And so it's like, you're going to be allowed. You have free will here. You're a sovereign human being. So whether you believe in source, God, universe, higher power, energies, angels, whatever, they could be trying to guide you and you don't have to listen, right? Like, you're a sovereign human being. But the way I see it is like, imagine your parents or your team is above you and they're like, oh shit, she's not stopping. Like, she's going to do this thing. Okay, frick. And then they redirect and they help you shift to whatever place you need to be. And I think that season in California, if you guys remember who I became, like, I became brighter. I became like that, honestly, like that sexual creativity, like that root chakra, those, what is it called? Your sacral, like all of those things I think were activating, and I needed to be there for those things to activate. And then now it's like I'm way more grounded in myself and I'm feeling the need to come back to where I'm from, put my roots here in terms of creating the school and serving the people that I've grown up around. And then I feel in the future, I'm going to be pulled somewhere else. I'm not feeling that pull right now. So again, leaning in, trusting it, and knowing that there's a path that I'm not quite aware of, but it needs to happen. Okay. Next one, number 9. We're almost done. Thanks for hanging in here. Friendship. This season of sisterhood, from not being in a relationship, you guys, I've been in a relationship since I was like 13. I've had guys or boyfriends or been not boy crazy, but like looking for my husband since I was freaking like 10. And I would just say, like, with this season of being single and not having a boyfriend or a husband, whatever, now it's like, it's coming up to over a year and a half. Like, it's going to be 2 years in no time. I have developed such a deep connection with my friends and this sisterhood bond that I don't know if I ever would have leaned into in the way that I have had I still been married, because you prioritize your husband, you prioritize your partner. That's very normal. But like, this season has allowed me to deepen those relationships and trust women in a way that I never had before. I never needed to rely on one. I never needed to rely on a friend. I never needed to come to them for emotional support, like, or talk about anything. Like, I really navigate. I also do navigate a lot of stuff alone. Like, I just do better managing it internally. But it's like, I would go to the husband or the partner for that. And I, not having that, have realized I've leaned on my friends and it's been beautiful. So I wrote, I realized because I was always in relationships, I never actually allowed the intimate and depth of how beautiful a friendship could be surface. I always had boyfriends, so I never really relied on my friends or women to support me in my emotions or to the depths that they're able to. It's been beautiful cultivating such deep, deep friendships and relationships with women in my life and being able to be vulnerable and open and continuing to foster that even deeper. I don't think I went to a deep, vulnerable place with my friendships in the past. So this has created like a new level to friendship for me. The next one, number 10, I've allowed myself to continue to evolve and expand, not putting myself in a box, letting myself share whatever is on my heart to share. To go and share about all kinds of topics and combos has allowed my content to shift, and it allows me to put out whatever feels good to me that I see value in, regardless of the algorithm. And that's been powerful and freeing to just put out all sides of me. I used to hold back certain parts like spirituality, because I didn't want to be too woo-woo. And now I share about all the things, let it be angel numbers or signs or whatever, because it's powerful. And I share it about it because it may help others become more comfy with it or inspire them to start seeking and understanding, because I know how deeply it could serve them based on how deeply it served me. So this is beautiful because like I was talking to my friend about this. I'm like, people, I think I'm nutso. Like, I went and did mushrooms, and then now I share about hummingbirds and butterflies and ladybugs and the insects and like all these things. But I think there's such beauty in this, because when you really start to understand the interconnectedness, like, you hear we're all one and we're interconnected. It's like, that's all fine as words, right? It's noise. When you feel it and you get it, it's like, okay, like, I see you, universe. Like, I will have repetition of a bug show up and it's like, okay, go look at this. I feel like I'm in the season of truly understanding insects. And my first mushroom journey, I felt myself in the ground with like the creation of life and how it started with the soil and like all the insects, and it was like all over, but not in a creepy way. And I think it was showing me like how interconnected we all are, and for us humans, how much more important we see ourselves, like almost entitled, like we own this world and this space without realizing the impact we are having on everything else that makes our world function the way that it does. And if I can inspire other people to understand that like, you're not alone, literally in a moment where you feel like you're sitting alone and a butterfly comes through your window, like, they're communicating with you. Of course, the ladybug just went by because that's been my thing lately. It guided me all weekend. It's guiding me now. I need to go read in the book again what that means. But And then it just came back like literally to my window. Anyways, I just think it's interesting. And I just had a thought, because if you guys have followed my journey about the butterfly, like that butterfly guided me through my entire separation and like navigating that and being like, fuck, am I on the right path? Like, what am I doing? What am I doing? Like, why am I choosing this? This is so insane. And like, people don't get it. And like, am I ruining my kids? Am I ruining my family? Am I ruining my life? Like, all of those doubts, fears, everything crept in. But I would have, in those hard moments, I'd be walking, because that was kind of how I navigated all of this, was I would go for walks to clear my mind. And just like, you can't feel fear when you're walking forward. It's literally hard for your body to navigate feeling both of those things. So if you're someone who's constantly anxious and in fear, walk, go move your body forward. It helps shift what's happening in your body. And so I would do that. And then the butterfly would show up for me, and I would just feel like so much peace. I'm like, okay, thank you. I see you. Thank you. I see you. And it was such a driving, guiding force in like a very difficult time in my life. And that can sound insane to someone who's not connected to that yet. But if me sharing all my woo-woo helps you be like, fuck, maybe the butterfly does mean something. Maybe this spider that keeps showing up on my door is trying to tell me something. If you start paying attention to this, you will never feel alone. You realize that even in your solitude of being a human being alone, like there is everything around you trying to communicate and connect with you all the time. If you haven't heard the I think like Angels in Our Hair is the book that it's called, that she can see an angel, like there's a higher power, like your guardian angel above you at all times. It's like, imagine the people who are dealing with depression and feeling so alone and like they have no one, understood that they literally, if they would just quiet the noise and tune in, have an angel with them at all times guiding them. Like, that's beautiful. So me sharing my woo woo, like even if you're like, oh fuck, what is she talking about? That's so weird for me. Just know that it's really amazing. It can be really beautiful. It could transform your life like in a really beautiful way. So I would just say, don't knock it until you've leaned into it and just seen what shows up for you. Okay, the next one, say yes more and learn to go with the flow. I've been creating a lot less plans and allowing my body and invitations to guide me, and it's been so beautiful. So here's an example from this weekend, okay? So this weekend I went to Regina. I knew I was attending for a wedding. Of course, it's 1/11. I knew I was attending for a wedding, and that's it. She had said, like, did you book your hotel? Did you book your hotel? And I was like, no. And I just knew, like, when I got there, I would feel if I was meant to book a hotel or not. Okay, this is how it happens when you become really intuitive. So I booked a flight there, and I was like, I feel like I'd rather stay at Kira's house for one night. So I did. And then the next day I was like, I have other girls there. Like, it could be Az or Jill or whoever. And I was like, maybe I'll end up staying with them, or I'll stay in a hotel. It doesn't matter. But like, I'm just going to flow with it. So I did. And so the day before I leave, a hummingbird comes directly to my window, and I go, okay, that was like because obviously you see things, but like they make it known when it's meant to be a communication point. And so the hummingbird goes by, and I'm like, okay, cool. Then it comes back and it's like hovering, and I'm like, okay, I see you. Because this has been happening to me lately, where I don't pay attention the first time, and then it will show me again as like, are you listening? And I'm like, okay. I'm getting better at just like acknowledging it on time one. I don't need to see it a bunch of times to know that it means something, right? And so the hummingbird comes by. And if you guys follow me on Instagram, you saw I shared on my stories. I need to take a deep breath. You guys can probably feel how differently I'm talking because I'm not breathing. I'm just talking really fast. Okay. You guys probably saw in my stories the hummingbird, and it was basically saying like all this, like feeling into your body and like the love that you're going to feel, and allow it in and accept the love that's coming, and then give out the love and surround yourself with flowers as much as possible this weekend to like show the love for yourself or something like that. There's always like random shit that it says that I'm like, okay, I'm just supposed to buy bouquets all over my house. I don't know, whatever. So I take it in, and I'm just like, okay. So then I get to Kira's house, and she goes, yeah, I don't have like a ton to do tomorrow, but like I do have to go buy flowers, and like I have to make all the bouquets. I was going to ask if you want to help me. And I went, dude, like what are the chances that you're doing your own flowers for your wedding? We need to go buy a ton of flowers, and then you want me to help you make bouquets that we are going to have to put all over your house until the wedding? Like, it's a yes for me because the hummingbird literally told me that I needed to do this. And so it's like little things like that. And then I can't remember what we were doing, and we went somewhere, and I'm like, Kate, do you see this? Like how the butterfly is always showing up. Randomly, she's like, I want to go into the ring store because I need to clean my ring. And I'm like, no problem. Let's go to the ring store. So we go in. The lady goes, hey, would you like to try some on for yourself? And I go, no. And then I was like, just say yes. And I was like, okay, sure. I look over. The yellow butterfly, you guys, is sitting, they have the butterflies in the ring desk. And I'm like, what are the chances? Like, why do they have butterflies in this ring place? Like, that's so freaking random. The yellow butterfly. So I'm like, cool, cute. Like, I'm totally supposed to be trying on rings right now. And so I go try on rings, and I'm also like, okay, well, you were supposed to bring as much feelings of love into your body as you could. And so imagining getting married again and having a ring again, like that feels weird, by the way. When you've had a ring on, then it takes off. Like, it feels interesting. That's like a navigation with the ego too. When I first had to take it off and I felt unclaimed, that was the whole thing. Anyway, so yeah, I ended up like trying on rings, and I'm like, okay, we see the butterfly. Then Adam, the night before, look, that's her husband, and he listens to this sometimes. So, hey, Adam, if you're listening, hi. And he goes, you need to meet my dad. Like, you need to meet my dad. You need a session with him. He does reflexology. Like, you guys would see so would I, and so many things about the world and all this stuff. And he goes, you should try to get an appointment with him. And so we show up to Kier's in-laws house, and there's flowers all over, the most flowers in the whole neighborhood, I swear. And then the butterfly. And I'm like, you can't make this up. Like, clearly I'm supposed to be here. And this whole time there's this little ladybug. Everywhere we go, everywhere we stop, there's a ladybug. I'm like, did you see that? She's like, no, because it's for me. So I'm supposed to see it. And so the ladybug goes by. And so anyways, I go for this reflexology appointment. I don't really know the greater plan of it all, but I'm just trusting in these moments where I had to go be at these places, right? And so I go for a reflexology appointment. Freaking random. Who is going to someone's wedding and like they end up having reflexology? Okay, whatever. I've had digestion issues going on. He can note that through my feet, all these different things, right? Okay, great. So then the next day it ends up working out that I like end up after the event staying at Aslan's house, and then the freaking ladybug, there it is again. Where does I say ladybug? Shows up, and it's like coming around with me everywhere I go. And then we stopped somewhere else and there was another butterfly. And so I'm telling you all of this because it was like these little synchronicities of me just trusting and going with the flow with zero plan outside of the wedding. Like, just flow with it. And it turned out beautifully. I didn't need to have some pre-planned, like, okay, we're going to go for lunch here and then I'm going to stay at this hotel and I'm going to do this. And like, I just want to tell you, if you operate like that, it's called anxiety. Like, you have such a fear of being out of control that you need to control and plan every single detail. You don't need to do that. I know some people believe they need to do that. They're like, no, I'm so type A, like I have to. And I'm like, no, this is called like probably trauma from your childhood of feeling like you needed to control, or else when you didn't, like shit hit the fan. I don't know exactly what that is for you, but like, no, you really don't. Like, you could learn to surrender. Oh, my voice. You could learn to surrender and trust the flow of opportunities that are presented to you. And this could feel really scary, but I just literally went with no hotel book, no nothing booked. And I was like, I'm just going to trust it. I'm just going to flow with it and see where it takes me. Then my flight ends up leaving late the day I'm supposed to leave at like 5. And Az goes, wait, my mom is like so into this stuff, like energy and all these things. And she was like, I feel like you need a session with her. So we ended up going to her house one day. We like stopped by for 15 minutes, talked to her for a little. And I'm like, we were connected. Like, I could feel that. And of course the ladybug was there. And I was like, yeah, cool. Like, if it works, that's fine. Because her mom ended up saying, like, I would love, Carly's really fascinating. I would love to do a session on her. And I said, yeah, no problem. Like, if we can fit it in. So it ends up working out. The day before I leave, I go. And we end up having this session. We talk about some stuff. And I get into her house, you guys, and a ladybug falls out of my sock. Like, what are the chances? It doesn't happen. And then as I look up where the ladybug fell out, I look at her wall and the yellow effing butterfly is right there. And so I'm like, no matter what, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I just need to trust it. And so I did. And so I'm just telling you this because I think this year has showed me, like, I used to be the planner. I used to need to know everything. I used to need to have everything like laid out. And I'm like, you really don't. Like, if you get that much trust within your body, you can just let things flow and you're going to end up exactly where you're meant to. So trust that. And also trust that if life was perfect, we wouldn't learn anything. So wait, hold on. This is the next one. Number 12, trust that the journey is unfolding exactly as it should, even the hard stuff. See it as something your soul signed up for to evolve and learn through. If it was perfect, we wouldn't learn anything. There's lessons in the hard and the stuff that shakes up our lives. You need to trust that, and trust that you needed it to become who you're meant to become, to serve humanity in the way that you're meant to with your unique gifts and story. So if you start to see life that way, even when the hardship pops up, to be like, okay, clearly my soul chose this and I need to move through this and navigate this, and I'm going to have some skill set at the end that I wouldn't have had without it. Like, if you could approach every hard thing in your life from that space, Do you know how much more beautiful life becomes even in the hard seasons? You don't see it as bad. You don't feel it as a victim, like, oh my God, what with me? Why is happening? Oh my God, why am I breaking up with somebody? Oh my God, like, why am I dealing with this thing? Like, oh, why did I deal with substance abuse? Oh, why? Like, yes, you can say, oh, why, and you can have grief around it. But it's like seeing it as there's a benefit here because your unique experience and story is going to allow you to help other people. You couldn't do that without that. I wouldn't have started this podcast and been able to talk through a separation and with kids and how I'm navigating that and healing through it and having a single season at 30 when you think you're going to be married for life. Like, I couldn't have shared the things that I'm learning on this podcast had I not navigated that. And that was like the deepest, darkest thing ever. Having my entire life plan shaken up, right? Because it was like, you go to school and you get the job and then you have the kids and you get married and you do the things that life is perfect. And we have a white picket fence because life is perfect and everything's perfect and I'm perfect and our family's perfect. And we're the picture perfect family. And people literally used to say that to us. Oh my God, you guys are so picture perfect. Oh my God, your family's picture perfect. That was ingrained in me. Like, how could I tear up this picture perfect family? How could I do that? And it's like, there was lessons in that because I was clinging to the picture perfect Instagram family out of ego, not out of like a greater good of humanity. Okay. And the last thing I just want to say, and then we're going to end this and I need to upload this. It's going to be late today, but this felt like I needed to do this today and I needed to just put this out there to celebrate a year of doing this podcast. You guys, every week I've pretty much recorded, like, it's very cool. The last thing, oops, I lost it. I've really proven to myself how powerful my intentions are. And for you, that means you are just as powerful and your intentions are powerful too. So everything I set in March of last year, which was March of 2023, came true. And I believe it came true because I wrote those with full conviction and full belief that in 1 year from that day, they would come true. So much so the amount I said I was going to have in my bank account, that I was going to commit to flying first class because I deserve to spend money on me and like have luxuries for me. It was the act of it. It's not necessarily like the flying first class. It was that intention behind it, of choosing and being okay spending money on myself when it didn't benefit my kids or my family or other people. And I just want to say, like, when you set an intention with full conviction and belief within your whole body, it really does come true. And just trust that once you write those intentions down and you feel that and you set them for like a 6-month, 1 year, 5 year, whatever. I love 1 year because it gives you time to actually have things start moving and shifting to move you toward that thing. And trusting that if you stay on the path toward those intentions and watch how it unfolds, you're going to understand that you truly can have whatever you want in this life. You just need to be willing to ask for it. And I was willing to ask for it. I wasn't afraid to ask for it. It was like some of the things now when I think about it, I'm like, wow, you really did that. And I would just say, like, my hope for you is to understand how powerful you are, because every single one of your thoughts is creating your current reality. And if you want to shift your reality, you need to first start by shifting those thoughts. And if you can know that, like, I can say that to you, and you're like, oh yeah, cool. And you hear it. But like, if you can know that and catch yourself, you can change your entire life. And this is so effing powerful. So like, take the time out of your day, sit there without your phone, without distractions. Like, what do you want to see in a year from now? Write down 10 things that you can fully commit to. I did that at my first awaken, you guys. I sat there and I let the feeling overtake me and I went, what do I want? Me. Because for so much of my life, everything I said I wanted had to do with for the family and for the kids and for this. And like, yes, I still do that to an extent. But like, what did my heart and my soul want? And even with this school thing, because sorry, I just hit my mic. We're in the process of creation now. And I'll just say, like, this is one of those things that's like a God calling. I don't necessarily have a passion for school. I wasn't like, wow, I want to be a teacher and I want to impact kids. No. But I can feel it as a need. Like, no one else is doing this. It's you. Like, I'm looking around for someone else. I'm like, oh my God, like, I would love to just send my kids. So it's not created. And so it's like, it's been placed on me to create. And so I will. And like, I think this is where, because obviously anyone who has a faith or Christian or whatever that they believe in, will like being a good servant. This is where like the lingo that's used in the Bible can be very contradicting. But I think if you understand it this way, it's like when source, God, universe pulls you to do something, even though it's not something you necessarily care about, it's not your quote unquote passion. I know I'm being called to do this. So I'm just listening. And it's not something like I was thinking about this other day where it's like some people, I've heard people say this where, no, this wasn't my passion. This was like what God wanted to use me for. And I'm like, yeah, I feel that with this because I'm like, I have no desire to like people like, oh, you want to be a teacher? I'm like, no, I'm not going to be a teacher. I'm just going to do what it takes to create the space to have this get going for kids and to serve them because that means something to me. My kids and their experience means something to me. And because they mean so much to me, I'm willing to do this. And like, I want to impact other kids too that also need that. Um, and it's interesting because I used to be the person, this is something else that I just noticed right now. I was the person who said, I didn't say I hate kids, but I didn't enjoy them. Like if you asked me to hold your baby, I was like, no. If you wanted me to hang out with a 3 and 4 year old, I was like, ew, no. I would say ew. Honestly, like I was that person who felt that way about kids for a really long time until I had my own. And it was this weird disconnect. And the way that I can see it now is like a deep disconnection with maybe my inner child. I don't know. I've never actually navigated this. But again, that fear of speaking and then that fear of children and like, what am I going to be doing right now? I'm speaking. Obviously, that's more for me, honestly, doing these podcasts. Like it feels good for me, but I know you guys get something out of it too. But then with the kids, it's like now I'm creating a freaking school and we are surrounded by kids. And in these last few years, you guys, babies and kids will come up to me like they look me in my eyes. I can't explain it. If you've gone on a spiritual journey at all, worked with plant medicine, like you will feel this. They look at you and the only way I can describe it, and I've had friends say this too, it's like they can feel the purity of your soul, that you're safe. And so kids are attracted to me everywhere I go now. And I'm like, I used to say I hated kids. I can't even believe that used to come out of my mouth because I'm like, they're the most pure, beautiful souls on this entire planet that need to be so carefully like cherished and taken care of and loved on. And they're just amazing little mini geniuses. And like if we saw them as these amazing creatures with these amazing unique gifts that they come into this planet and they honestly know more than we do because they haven't been programmed out of their current, like their natural, I don't know how you describe it, like their nature of love. Like they come in as pure love. The only reason they become anything outside of that is external forces. There's no baby that comes into this world not pure and full of love. Like it is environmental, it's parenting, it's programming, it's different things that come in and impact this like perfect little being. And all these things start happening to them. And then they learn that not everything is love and that maybe not everything is pure. And then their childhood is taken from them, their innocence is taken from them because of certain situations. But they start as that. And so it's not that you need to quote and, protect them from everything and shield them. No. But when you support them in that as much as possible, like they will remain as close to that as they can for life. And I think that that's really beautiful. So those are my kind of 12, 13 little lessons from the year. And that's my nice little recap to send off season one. Season one of the podcast is done and we will be starting season 2. I'm so excited. I have a bunch of new guests that are coming on. I'm going to have repeat guests. If you guys have anyone that you would love to hear, message me and say who they are. And like, maybe we can get that set up. If you would love to hear a conversation, if there's anything that you would love me to talk about, like feel free to send me a message. If you enjoyed this episode, if there's someone that it resonated or landed for that, this could serve, like share it with them, send it to them, share it on your stories. You guys tag me. I love it when you guys share. It means so freaking much to me to know that people are getting takeaways from this. And I appreciate it so much. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much for being part of my journey as my first year as a podcaster, where I just get to share my truth and my voice and my thoughts so freely. It's felt amazing. So thank you so much for being here. I really, really, really appreciate you guys. The sharing, the subscribing, like also on YouTube, like we had more traction on YouTube. I feel like this could grow a lot faster, but barely anyone listens to it there. It's typically Spotify and Apple. But even subscribing to my YouTube channel or subscribing on podcast on Apple and Spotify, like those things help a ton. Downloads, all that stuff helps. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you next week in the next episode. Bye. Have such a good day.